All the features that make up a person's face can differ from one person to the other. They have to. That's what gives them the personality. The eyes, the mouth, the nose, they all have different shapes. There's one that's similar in most people, and at the same time very complex and very different, and that is the ears. Ears can really define a person. If a guy's been in a boxing ring for 20 years, his ears are going to look really weird. Whereas somebody who's just been playing in their garden, their ears might be nice and clean and so on. But the shape of that ear is important, and it is made up of many different shapes. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in close here on one of the characters here, Russell Brown, and we're going to deal with his ear. Okay, there you can see quite a few ears, and they're all different. So let's go and look at Russell Brown's face. There's Russell Brown. So if we look at the layers, and here's the head layers, and we see there's the ear bunch, and you see that there's a few. All right, there's the main drop shadow, but here's the main, the inner ear, and the inner two. All right, there's two inner ears that I'm dealing with here. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn off the ear. Let's turn off that top layer, which is the composite layer. We're going to turn off the ear layer, and there he is, Vincent van Gogh, Russell Brown. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go in here and create our own ear, a brand new ear right there. So right here on top of this, we're going to create a new group, which will be the Van Gogh ear. There we go. And in there, we're going to create the first layer. And this is the mane. I always call that main shape, like for the nose, the mane, and then the other parts, whatever they are. So I'm going to look at the different paths that make this up. So let's go over to our paths panel. And there we see all the different shapes right there. So let's pick up the color of his skin. Let's pick up this color right about there. All right, that's a good color. And I'm going to select this main section right there, the main section of the ear. So in that layer, I'm going to go ahead and fill that path with that tone. So I'm going to select this shape right here, which I'm going to then create another layer and call it inner one, and fill that path with that color. And I'm going to select this one here. I'm going to have three different inner shapes here. So I'm going to go in here and say inner two and fill it. And finally, this one here, which will go and create that third layer, which we'll call inner three, and fill it. So there, we now have all the different layers set up in the ear. If we want to look at them, let's just see them. There's the main, there's the inner one, inner two, and inner three. Now we're going to start to give them the feeling of depth and shape and so on by using the burn tool. The dodge and burn tools are going to give us all the tones that we want in there. So let's start with inner one. So what I do usually is I'll take a nice big size tool there and just kind of give it a touch, just so I see where it is. See, there it is right there. So now I can bring down my brush size and start to finesse this shape. So I'll go in there and start to darken all the different tones where I want them to be nice and dark. And it helps to have reference material. If it's a person that you're trying to duplicate, then you definitely need to see exactly where those dark tones are for that particular person. Now, if you like a little warmer, I could set this up to my shadows. Shadows is going to kind of warm up the way the shadows are being applied. See? Right there. If I want to make it a little more muted, I can go to highlights, which is going to give me more of a grayish tone like that. So now that I've got those particular tones, let's go in there and add a little highlight to it. So I'm going to take my dodge tool, make it a little smaller, and just kind of give it a little highlight right in that little area right in there. Just like that. Then I'm going to go to inner two. I'm going to, again, just see exactly where that tone is. So I'm going to go in there and just give it a quick touch. There it is. So now I can go in there and start to apply the actual effects that I need for this. So I'm going to bring my tool size down, the brush tip size, and I'm going to start to darken right along this edge right in there like that. And right in here, I'm going to start to add a little darkening right into that area. Now, these are going to get softened later on. So right now, we're just working with the hard edges. So there's that. Then we have inner three. Now, we kind of see where that is, so we don't have to play with that one. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just go in here and start to darken those edges right in here, right in there, and then there's a little indent that happens in most people's ears right about there. So I'm going to start to really darken these edges right in there like that. Okay, so now add a couple little highlights. So I'll get my dodge tool and we'll add a little highlight right through here and a little one right through there just to start to add those little effects. This one right here is extending beyond. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the inner 2 into a selection by command clicking on it. And then with the inner 3 selected, I'm going to say, give it a mask. And there that mask automatically trapped it inside of that area there. Now, let me undo that for a second. Let's take that mask away. Why? And I'll show you why. Because of the fact that I am going to soften this, and that gave me a hard edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in there to that inner 2 and soften it just a little bit. So I'll go into my Gaussian blur and soften this just a little. Let's just say about 2. There's that nice soft edge. So now we have the soft edge. So if I make that a selection now and go to inner 3 and say, give it a mask, now you see that the mask is soft as well, which is what we want. So now go to that inner 3 right here, and I'm going to blur that. So I'll go in there and give it that same blur filter, and I'm going to soften it. But this guy is going to get softened a little more than the other was. Click OK, and we have that. So now I have to go in there and finesse it even more. So I'm going to switch back to my burn tool, and I need to darken in here. So that becomes one complete lip over the area of the ear. And maybe darken some of these edges a little more right through there like that. Okay, so now going back to our inner 2 right here, I can start to play with that a little more just to finesse it, just to soften it, get a little darker in these areas, just where I need it, right in through there, like that. Now, down here, it should get much softer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select it, and I'm going to feather my selection a little more so that I could just select this area right down here for the inner 2, and I'm going to go in there and blur that a little more than the rest. And you can see how that now starts to soften up as it gets a little further down. Then inner 1, that right now is very hard, so I'm going to go in there and soften that one. So I'll go in there and just bring down this opacity a little bit, there, about like that. And I could start to play with that a little more if I want, add a little more shadow in these areas and so on. Now this little hard line right there, that little hard line is being caused by inner 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this area of inner 2 and soften that even more. So you can see I'm working with individual areas and just blurring certain parts just to give me just the effect that I want. So once I have that, I'm going to go to the main, and I'm going to start to darken those in certain areas. So we'll just give it a little darkening through here, and there's a little edge right there. Right now I'm making it up. I'm not looking at any reference material. I'm just kind of playing around and trying to get my own look that I want. And add a little tones along the bottom here, just along the bottom, right in there, like that. And a little dark tone right through there, and then a little dodging. We'll add a little highlight there, a little highlight right here, and maybe a little highlight right along this edge where it's just picking up some lights from somewhere else. And then a little highlight right here, a little highlight there, not that long, like that. And a little darkening in that area too. We'll just darken little tones here and there just to add a little more definition to it. And once we have that, I'm going to go in here and give the main a mask. And in that mask, I am now going to go ahead and cover up some of these hard edges that we have here. So I'm just going to go in there and start to soften this up so the ear starts to blend in with the rest of the head, just like that. And there you see that Russell Brown has a brand new ear. Pulling back, and we see that we have this nice ear. We can give him a little earring or whatever, but there's his ear.